Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to what promises to be a really interesting conversation between Charles from Handshake and colleagues Amy and Dan from Loughborough University London, taking us through how to develop great relationships between employers and universities through collaborative projects. We are going to have some time at the end for people to be able to ask questions. The Q&A function is available. Please do use that to put any questions to the panel. We also have the chat functionality, so love to hear any comments, reflections as the conversation goes along. Charles, Amy and Dan will have some time at the end as well to look back on that and see what shared experiences we have by the end of the session. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. And Charles, I'm going to hand to you now. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Charles Hardy, Head of University Partnerships at Handshake here. Thank you for joining. And thank you for those who might also be listening to a recording of this session. Very excited to be in discussion with two members of the Future Space team at Loughborough University London today. I'm pleased to introduce Dan Robinson, who's Future Space Projects Manager, and also Amy Pyle, who's the Learning Partnerships Manager. Just before we kick off, I'd say, please do say hi in the chat. We love to hear who you are, where you're coming from today around the country or even around the world. So please don't be shy, say hi in the chat as we go along. And as just mentioned, we'll look to take some questions in the Q&A towards the end. So Amy, if I could start with you to kick things off by giving some background on Loughborough University London and Future Space and your own role.
Sure, thanks, Charles. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to keep this quite high level, just in the interests of time. But to give you a little bit of context, we're obviously based down in London, and we are an exclusively postgraduate campus with around 600 students studying with us, predominantly international, so about 80% international students. We've got quite a lot of Indian and Chinese students studying with us. We are based on the lovely Olympic Park behind me, Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and we were part of the redevelopment and regeneration of the area post 2012 Olympics, and campus opened in 2015. Most of our students study full-time with us, so they're on a one-year full-time master's and a few part-timers as well. And we have 5 institutes of study, and I would say kind of our USPs, if you like, as a campus is we do have quite tight and connected relationships with employers. That's one of the reasons why students come and study with us, is they want that access. They're often returning to study, having been in employment themselves, so they're really keen to make connections. We have a strong focus in our teaching and learning in cross-disciplinary, so just because a student is studying one master's programme, they won't just be taught with those students, they're often taught with other programmes as well. And we teach in what I call like a sprint style, so they're 3-week modules. And students study with us for the full 12 months. Does that help, Charles?
No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. I mean, just one quick question. I mean, what's your relationship with the other Loughborough main campus? Is there much cross-pollination between you two?
Yeah, Dan probably will be able to answer this a bit more, having been here longer, but definitely we do work in terms of our teams. So our team, Future Space, is sort of very much about bringing in outside opportunities in terms of careers and employment development with our students. So our East Midlands campus has an equivalent careers team, and our students have access to that team as well and those resources. So some of the opportunities around startup they can access through our team, but also through our colleagues in the East Midlands as well.
Okay. And Dan, let's bring you in. Can you tell us more about Future Space and what you do and what your mission is?
Yeah, glad to. So I guess we come from we look at trying to develop experience for students. Some of that is through the curriculum, some of that is extracurricular activity. We have a lot of events and activities around developing network, understanding network, and helping students to grow their network professionally as well. We do quite a lot of work around skills development, so soft skills such as teamwork or growing confidence in presenting yourself, but also some more professional development activities, things around developing skills with design tools, Figma. We've had some activity around data analysis. We're looking at a coding boot camp coming up soon as well, and we've had some agile and Kanban practices as well, which both sit within professional development, but also contribute to some of the academic activity that we have. Some of our modules do involve working with partners in industry as well.
It sounds very, very practical in terms of the skills that you're helping these students develop. Is that sort of the goal, to really empower them going out into the workplace?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, I think from the minute our students arrive, they're encouraged to engage with developmental opportunities, and with some of the business partners and organisations that we work with. We try and get a lot of exposure for our students to these, as I said, both through some of our academic programmes and through some of the extracurricular activities that we have. So we do try and I guess generate an ethos of learning and then practice within a practical or professional setting.
And one of the challenges that I often hear from institutions is around student engagement. Is this a challenge for you to get students to engage with? And you mentioned extracurricular and other activities. Sounds like there's a lot on offer. How do you get the students to really buy into everything?
Shall I go first, Dan, and then you can add?
Yeah, please do.
I don't think kind of we're unique in the sense that engagement can be a challenge, but I think it's around students are not with us for very long. We've only got a year with them, so that is a challenge for us. But they are normally quite focused, so that, you know, the majority of our students come and study with us because they want to connect into industry. And so we sort of can overcome that challenge by, you know, illustrating our strong relationships with employers and exposing them quite early on. So, you know, putting on some site visits, bringing employers into campus to undertake, you know, be on panels, so they can't kind of start interacting. And we use them sort of as a carrot, really, to help them start engaging in that first semester when they arrive in October.
Yeah.
Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything more around the kind of challenge with engagement.
I guess coming back to what you said about it being a short 1-year program, we do work quite closely with our academic teams and registry as well, just to try and identify pinch points where students might be overloaded academically and try and work outside of those timelines. But yeah, no, I think engagement, as Amy said, you know, students are keen to engage with employers and to learn from them. We have mentoring schemes going on as well, which start quite early in a student's life cycle. So I guess it depends on where in a career journey a student might be. You know, some students come to us very early careers and literally just, I've got my academic program. How do I connect this to a careers journey? What do I do afterwards? So, but then other students have maybe had 4 or 5 years working in industry, and they can come in and go, right, I'm here, I want to get there. How do you help me do it? So we can, you know, we work with students on a quite an individual basis. I guess that's one of the advantages of us being a smaller campus, is that we do have more bandwidth to connect with students on a one-to-one basis and really help them figure out their own journeys.
You're able to personalize that development. plan for them?
To a degree. So I think that again helps, students become more familiar with us, and they kind of rely on us for advice a little bit more. So again, that kind of helps enhance engagement with students.
As I understand it, you're focused on supporting the student life cycle through 3 main themes. Can you provide a bit more around those insight around those building blocks, Dan?
Yeah. So we have, as I'm sure a lot of academic institutions have, we have a careers development program or process that students go through called Personal Best. This is at both campuses, but it varies slightly depending on which campus you're studying at. And we tend to focus around practices in reflection and action. Again, this is something that happens academically as well, but we have a careers focus on it in terms of looking at previous or current experiences, trying to figure out where your improvement areas might be, and planning interventions that might further that development. So we also look at skills development, as I mentioned earlier, and then experience is another key thing for us, both in terms of getting something on your CV, showing employers that you can do a job in the UK, and again also to enhance student networks. I don't know whether you want to add to that, Amy, at all.
Yeah, I think kind of on the experience part of that offer, if you like, that's where often our employee engagement with employers will come in. So, that might be through micro-internships, site visits, guest lectures where employers are coming in. And we also run a program called Collaborate. So we have about 13 key employers that engage in that curriculum module in the year. So we have about 450 students that go through that module, and they're working with a specific employer on a live brief for 3 weeks. So they get that real interaction of kind of what it's like to, work in a team, but also work on something that's, very topical and real for that employer. And those 13 partners, they come in out throughout the 3 weeks. They engage with the students. So that's a really nice way for our students to develop skills.
That sounds really great in terms of hands-on. Can you give any examples of the kind of Collaborate projects that they're working on this year, or generally what kind of things do they get involved with?
Yeah, so our 13 partners this year range from everything from charities and startups to much larger established international companies. So it's quite varied in terms of engagement. But we've had kind of how holograms and AI is being used in creative kind of industries, and it's a national company, but they work locally, a lot of work in London with museums and public spaces. So how they're using those emerging technologies within their offer, and then having students' perspectives. So they have to present back their recommendations and ideas. And we've had AI has been quite a topic this year, as you can imagine. But yeah, and we've had kind of West Ham United, whose foundation, who's based not far from us. So they're looking at how they improve their mentoring programs for young people in communities. So they had their project was focused on students bringing ideas and recommendations around that.
And is there a form of, how is that assessed? How does the process of this collaboration work?
Yeah, so in terms of how employers get involved with us, some have been involved for a number of years, and will present a different brief each year. But we have new partners, so we do like an open call in the autumn term for it, and we run an event before Christmas. So that's a way of employers kind of expressing their interest. It's a curriculum module, so it goes, it's a kind of academic piece of work, and it's assessed through a reflective essay, which kind of links into the personal best aspect that Dan was talking about, that reflection piece, and also a team presentation as well. So that's how the work is assessed. And then for the partner organisation, they then can take away those kind of like, thoughts and ideas that they can kind of think about as an organisation.
And, in terms of those organisations, you mentioned, I think 13, and you've got new ones coming in. Is there opportunities, or are you always on the lookout for more employers to be participation?
Yeah, definitely. A lot. Dan, you might want to come in and talk about micro-internships and site visits and things. A lot of kind of how employers engage with us can really vary. It's kind of be like repeat kind of work. They might come to one of our events and then engage from there. It might be a referral from an academic who's doing work elsewhere with that employer, and has spoken about the other opportunities. One of our institutes, our Sport Business Institute, has an advisory board of employers, and that works really well because they then get involved in kind of they're sort of already hooked in, if you like, but then they get involved in other things in the university as well. Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I guess I could, as you mentioned, the site visits and the micro-internships. So we are very lucky in our location. The Here East building just over Amy's shoulder there is packed with everything from multinational innovation centres to a lot of tech startups and other organisations. So there are always opportunities for our students to connect with them, network, ask questions about careers development, understand a little bit more about the day-to-day practice in a specific role, or maybe ask questions around how individuals within those industries have developed their careers. So we run quite a few site visits for those reasons. Not all on Here East. We do venture out into the wider London community as well. So they're always quite useful. And again, I think employers have found those useful in the past because they get to have conversations with our to coin the phrase, emerging talent that we have at the London campus, who are always very keen to speak with employers. So it's a useful way for employers to have more informal conversations and learn a bit more about our students there. Also, we have something with the micro-internships. Again, this is they're short 8-week programs of part-time activity where we will work with a business or an organisation to develop a project brief around areas where businesses might not normally have capacity to explore new ideas or innovations. So we then advertise that through Handshake to our students. The students will go through a series of application stages to apply for these opportunities. And then students, once a candidate has been selected by the organisation, these students will connect directly with the organisations and work together for around 8 weeks to tackle these challenges. So again, it's a good opportunity for organisations to gain first-hand experience of some of the capabilities that our students have. And it's also an opportunity for our students to, again, as we mentioned earlier, put into practice some of the things they've learned through their academic development or through some of the workshops and activities that the Future Space team have offered over the year.
These sound absolutely brilliant programs in terms of getting that work experience and plugging into developing skills in a practical way. One thing, just jumping back maybe to the Collaborate, Amy, I was thinking you talked about how it's part of the curriculum. How is it working with academics, and what's the relationship? Because sometimes there can be a bit of friction there between the academia side and the careers and practical and internships and all this. you know, how have you developed a working relationship on that side of things?
Yeah, I think kind of it's sort of got to be focused around mutually beneficial. I think things like collaborative project, it's a academic module, is much easier. And we've just finished one module, and actually the academics really love teaching on it because they're engaging with industry as well. So they kind of really enjoy that aspect of connecting and staying connected to things that are really emerging and relevant to them as well. So I think it's kind of finding those points where if you're bringing in employers, whether it's for projects, you know, micro-internships, kind of academic colleagues can, you know, see the benefit of that for their students, and it doesn't kind of clash. I think the other Collaborate offer that we have for students is collaborative dissertation. And again, because it's an academic piece of work, our academics are on board with it. And this year we have around 40 organisations that engage in that opportunity, and we use Handshake to kind of manage that process. So again, that's another really nice kind of way that students can work with and get that exposure with industry, but it's also connected to their academic study as well.
No, that's really good. I'll come back to you on that in a moment. There's a question just come in actually, Dan, just on the in micro-internships. Are the students paid? Is that a paid opportunity?
They are not paid, but there is a financial bursary available to students who complete that. I guess this came from a previous piece of work that we did with the Digital Grid Partnership. Our part in that was called the Digital Skills Programme, which initially set out one of the objectives there was to support capacity building within SMEs, and SMEs and startups more often than not maybe don't have budget to throw at these kind of things. So from that aspect, we do pay a bursary, which is helpful in some ways, just on the SME engagement there as well, because startups and smaller early stage organizations, there's usually more capacity for students to be creative and innovate in those kind of contexts. Maybe some of the bigger organizations have established ways of working, which again, you know, we do expose our students to that as well, depending on the kind of career journey our students are looking for. But so I guess to circle back to the question, no, that's the reason why they're not paid, but they are also free for organisations to participate, and the students do receive a bursary for successful completion of a micro-internship. I hope that's helpful.
Just thinking about, you know, a lot of this is reliant on having employers who want to be involved and you know, support these projects. How do you go about, or how have you gone about sort of building up that that body of employers who you work with? You mentioned, you know, several of them are sort of consistent across different programs over a number of years, but how are you bringing more employers in?
Do you want to go first, or shall I have a crack at that one?
Yeah, I'll go first. I've only been at the university not even a year, so Dan's probably got more historic knowledge. I would probably say, kind of just having looked at it from a sort of external lens, it's something that's been built up over a long time. Some of these relationships have been nurtured and worked up for a number of years. But I think there's a variety of ways that we engage. We do that open call that we kind of push out locally, but also, you know, to our existing network, to our alumni. They're a very valuable source to us. A lot of our alumni are working in organisations nationally or internationally, who can then go to their managers and say, look, you know, these are great opportunities to get involved with from the university I used to attend. So sometimes they come through that route as well. And then, as I said, through things like the advisory board, academics directly. And we often find that an employer who's very engaged, an organisation that's very engaged, will engage multiple touch points. So they might do collaborative project and dissertation. They might do dissertation and a micro-internship. One of the other things that helps us as a university, and Dan, you'll probably be able to talk about it a little bit more than me, we've got some key partnerships called Talent Plus partners. So those organisations are sort of kind of committed to undertaking a certain amount with us each year. And that allows us to kind of use those and leverage those employers to support our students as well.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess like a lot of universities, we engage with employers through a vast number of ways, you know. So some of them have come from smaller existing research partnerships. We get approached randomly via email from organisations who are looking to recruit, and you know, sometimes that we can sort of say, well, yeah, we can do that, but there's also these other things that we have going on that might benefit your organisation. As I mentioned earlier, here ISE is a great place to be. There's a lot of organisations and startups there who are looking to engage with talent. But yeah, I guess some of the ongoing activities, word of mouth again, is something that's that has been very helpful. You know, I mean, the usual conferences, we've had some outreach activity going on as well, which has been quite useful. Sometimes employers are quite keen to learn more about some of the activities that we have on. So I guess there's a balance of a lot of different ways of connecting with employers there. And as Amy's mentioned, some organisations will stay with us and maybe explore some of the collaborate activities, but then a couple of years later, I guess their needs in those areas might have changed, and it might be that they adjust to attend one of our networking events or participate in a micro-internship. I guess we do have ongoing relationships with a lot of organisations, as I'm sure a lot of universities do, and those ongoing conversations, I guess, kind of help to outline the needs of our business partners and the student cohort as well, and we kind of work to fashion things that are suitable and beneficial for everybody involved.
And, you know, Amy, you mentioned the alumni side of things. I'm a massive supporter of leveraging alumni networks, and I guess the values and the experiences that you build in during their year with you is part of building also that wider network for the future, because you can tap into that alumni network to find those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And they're kind of I'm always amazed since I've been here how willing our alumni are to come back and give. I think maybe that's the advantage of being in London, like a lot of them are working in London. So they kind of, it's a bit more accessible for them to, you know, hop on a train and come across to us and do a careers evening. But, you know, we have 20 alumni come back and be on sort of careers panels at our kind of insight events for students. And, you know, they really value the alumni perspective, but also, you know, they can then engage with that employer or, you know, understand that sector or industry a little bit more. So yeah, they're really valuable resource to us.
No, I agree. Our alum have been very generous with their time over the years. They're very keen to engage with our students, and in a lot of cases explore ways that our current activities might be of a benefit to the organisation that they're working with at the minute. One example of this is, as well as the Careers Insight events that Amy's mentioned. So we had, it's a bit of a tangent, but a few months ago, some of our students expressed an interest in playing basketball, staff versus students, which I suddenly kind of thought, well, some of our employers and our alum I know they're involved in basketball. I know some of them were keen basketball players during their time with us. So why don't we turn this into like an employer networking event as well? So we booked the Copper Box on the Olympic Park for a couple of hours, and we booked some space nearby for informal networking afterwards. And we had about 5 or 6 alum attending, all representing their businesses. We had a couple of our business partners attending as well, and I think we had around 25 students. We'd love to have had more, but we were limited on capacity in terms of space. But yeah, it was just one example of how keen our alum are to get involved and to try new things and explore opportunities with our current students. So yeah, they are very generous with their time and keen to remain in contact with us and learn more about updates as things have developed within the Future Space team.
Yeah, thank you both. I think it's such a valuable activity to build in that relationship with them. So if they experience, the students, the help from alumni, they're much more likely to do it themselves, and you build that community feel off into the future, so that their connection with you is beyond just that 1 year. And I think I would definitely recommend that to any institution. How are you building up that community, and how do you keep it fresh and keep it connected, as they go off into the world of work? I just wanted to dip into what's a hot topic on many university conversations right now in terms of international students. You mentioned at the top, a lot of your students are international and coming into the UK. How are you addressing the challenges right now on visas and finding opportunities and employers that will support that within the UK?
Do you want to go first, Dan?
On that topic, not particularly, but yeah, why not? Yeah, it is more challenging. We have been. So I last week I was in India working with our international office, speaking to groups of offer holders, which I think was very helpful in terms of reassuring students about the kind of support interventions, the kind of network and opportunities that we have as a university. So that is always an ongoing activity there as well. I mean, we have relationships with a few organisations who look to specifically offer visa sponsored opportunities as well. But it is a challenge. But I think as careers professionals, the best thing we can do is just to try and get our students to engage as early on as possible, look at their career plans from the minute they arrive, and in our role in that, just to make sure that our students are as prepared and equipped and have the right skills and the right understanding of recruitment processes that we can perhaps offer them. I mean, we can't engage with every single student we have, but we do try our best to I guess try and develop an understanding of the requirements of recruitment in the UK, and the importance of experience on CVs and network both with our alum and with employers that we work with as well. And hopefully, if students can get that together as a package and be prepared and ahead of the game before they even graduate, then hopefully that will put them in a good position to explore visa sponsored opportunities and other things of that nature. I hope that helps. I know it's probably it is a hot topic at the minute, but it's not without its challenges, but hopefully that is helpful.
Well, that's really interesting, Dan. You've been to India and you're sort of liaising with the offer holders even before they come to the UK, and I think setting the scene, and then all the things you're talking about and supporting them, and not leaving any stone unturned, preparing early, doing your groundwork is obviously super important. Anything, Amy, you want to add into that?
Not particularly. I think kind of it's a challenging environment for all universities at the minute in terms of international recruitment, and then also kind of preparing our students adequately. And I think what Dan said, it's we have to move very quickly with our students when they arrive, and making sure that they have the right information. Sometimes it's managing expectations as well, around kind of, they might have a very clear goal to, secure work in the UK post-study. So it's like, right, okay, if that's your goal, as early as kind of November, after you've arrived in the October, this is the information you need, kind of start looking at it, start looking at your options. So yeah, it's kind of, preparing them as much as possible and giving them accurate advice and information. And that's where we get a lot of value from our East Midlands team as well, because our visa specialists are there. So our students will hook in with calls with that team. So yeah. That's
great. That's great. Actually, you made me think of just one question related a little bit to that, is sort of, can you just give a very quick précis over how the 12 months or the year pans out, what the sort of stepping stones are through that year?
Oh yeah, Dan, you go first and I'll fill in, because you've
okay.
I've done a year yet. You've done a year.
It does.
What does it look like?
It does change a little bit, but so just to complicate things, because we don't like doing things the easy way, we also have a January intake. It's the smaller of the two intakes, but so typically students will arrive at the end of September. We'll go through an induction week, I guess, both academically and in terms of orientation. But we have a few events which enable students to understand a little bit more about our offer, start to connect with some of our employers and alum, which hopefully also brings students together socially as well, so they can start building those social groups and hopefully get a bit of support and advice from a sort of peer-to-peer perspective. Then we have, so some of the micro-internships will start shortly. After that, we have between October and Christmas, there are the start of the academic modules will go through there. We will also have one of our Careers Insight events, typically around November time. So we'll bring in 20 or 30 alum and external stakeholders to sit on panels of 4 or 5. There are multiple panels going on at the same time, so students can elect which panel sessions they will attend, depending on what is most relevant to their careers plans. Christmas is a little bit quieter. Then we start gearing up for our January intake and induction. Then we also, at that time, start the lengthy process of preparing for the collaborative dissertation, and the collaborative project is not far behind that. We also run another series of micro-internships, probably from around March as well. So there's, I guess, our semester 2 is quite an intensive time, isn't it, Amy? We've got applications for the collaborative dissertation. There's the student groups and working with externals through the collaborative project. And all the while we've got this kind of undercurrent of site visits, networking, workshops. The typical workshops around CV development, speaking with confidence, working in groups, understanding visa requirements for some of our international students as well. So we've got this I guess this undercurrent of supporting activity going on as well. April, it seems that this year is reasonably typical. We get to Easter and students who've had quite an intense few months will typically travel for a few weeks or visit home, which kind of gives us a bit of time to reflect and prepare on the I guess the second quarter of the year, which students will continue with their academic activity as well as start the collaborative dissertation and other things. And at this time as well, students will be really pushing for seeking out job opportunities. So again, there's more activity around helping students to identify the right routes or the right careers opportunities for them. There's a lot more activity in terms of supporting preparation for these opportunities through CV reviews. We We have mock interviews for specific roles as well. So there's a lot of supporting preparation activity as we approach the summer. And then students will be doing, I guess, a few things at the same time. They'll be working on their dissertation, whilst also looking for job opportunities. And then we'll hit the middle of the summer and start preparing to do it all again. I don't know whether you want to add to that, Amy. That's
the only other thing that is quite important to us when we are inducting students at the end of September is onboarding them onto Handshake, because a lot of our activity goes through the platform. So, you know, making sure that students understand how to use it, you know, from our Loughborough London lens, but also more widely, you know, how they can leverage the other kind of opportunities on it. So that's an important touch point, is, you know, we're trying to onboard all of them so they don't get to January and kind of go, oh, you know, where's all the stuff? And we're, you know, so that's kind of an important sort of education piece for them to get going on.
Actually, sorry, I was just going to say, just on that when students first arrive, that can be a bit of a challenge, but I think we've noticed more recently that does pick up, you know, through, because our students, because they're all international and coming from here, there and everywhere, they do form quite tight social groups. So there's a lot of word of mouth, plus, you know, student visits to the space as well. So I find that they can quite quickly adopt that culture of, you know, where are our events? Handshake. How do we register our attendance? Handshake. Where do we find the jobs? How do we engage with employers? The site visits, you know. So the fact that it's app based as well, I think has certainly made our offer a bit more accessible this year. But yeah, Amy's right. There is a bit of work when they first arrive to sort of develop that culture amongst the cohort.
But thank you for the little segue just to mention Handshake there. Appreciate that. I think, you know, we've now partnered with you over this year. This has been the first year that we've supported you, both in terms of, you know, student development, employer engagement, managing these programs. You know, how has this helped? How has the Handshake platform helped evolve your overall offering from Future Space? Dan, do you want to just?
Yeah, I can do. I mean, I guess there's quite a few ways I could approach that question, I guess. But one of them is in terms of making efficiencies for the way our team operates, in terms of consolidating our offer, making it more accessible to students. You know, we have a lot more control over the data and insights to the way that our student cohort are behaving and responding to the certain interventions that we put on. So it allows us to make adjustments a lot more quickly that way. I guess just in terms of being able to see the kind of roles that students are applying for as well, kind of helps us to sort of fine tune our offer to be more relevant to what students are looking for. The external workshops and activities, again, is another benefit for us, because it just kind of helps us to sort of offer more, I guess. You know, we have activities on most weeks, but if we can say, look, well, there's 3 or 4 of our workshops, but there's also, you know, JP Morgan, NatWest, EY, they've got activities on this week as well. So it just helps us really sort of have a fuller offer in that sense. But I'm sure there's a lot of other things I haven't considered, which Amy might be able to comment on.
Yeah, I think kind of just from a collaborative dissertation perspective, I think Handshake has enabled us to streamline the process. So the platform requires, it sort of, you know, empowers the employer and also the student to engage actively. So previous systems and processes that we used, you know, Dan and colleagues were kind of, you know, doing all the legwork in the background to make it happen, whereas Handshake kind of forces the student and the employer to, you know, do that, but it also automates a lot of the process for us as well. And then, as Dan mentioned, we can close the feedback loops and get the analytics out of it, which previous systems and processes were much harder to do. And because it's all in one platform, you know, the analytics are in there, and we can then draw them out at the end of the process and during as well. So we're getting live kind of data, as opposed to having to do all that manually. So it's really helped streamline the sort of the process that both the organisations and the students go through in terms of collaborative dissertation.
No, that's great. You know, I'm conscious it's been the first year that Handshake's partnered with you for these programs and support. So I think there's going to be a lot of review come the end of this cycle, and you know, hopefully make it even better for the forthcoming year. I'm just going to, there's a question come in just around, it was very early on, in reference to mentoring. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, how you manage the mentoring and find mentors and match them up?
Yeah, this is it's not something I'm directly involved with, but so we, as part of what we do, just to, I will tangent a minute, but it will kind of come back round. So one of the things we do on a yearly basis is we actually employ a Future Space specific student ambassador, which again is great for gaining experience, developing network, having an understanding of how we work. But that is just to bring you back to the mentoring thing. So Jake, this year's ambassador, he does a lot of work in terms of supporting that, helping the students to connect with those opportunities. So within the team, we use existing networks to approach people who we think would be good for that role. Sometimes we will approach managers within organisations who we know, as this can also be a good developmental point for somebody early careers who might be looking to develop managerial skills or things in that area. The way we do it at the minute is again, this kind of came out of COVID in terms of accessibility. We kind of made it because it's quite difficult for mentors and students who are studying on different programs with different lectures at different times to all be in the same place at the same time. So we've allocated a 1 p.m. Monday slot online, and mentors will meet. So we'll have one mentor and then maybe 4 or 5 students in individual breakout rooms. The first session or two, we'll work on a business canvas style document, which will help students work with mentors to kind of figure out where it is they want to be, the kind of support mechanisms that they might need to achieve those goals, and then they will work on a weekly basis with the mentors over, I think it's a 6-week period, which we do 2 or 3 times a year. And students will work with mentors through that process, which more often than not does also continues further outside of that program as mentors and students connect outside of the program there, and will continue conversations, and who knows where that might lead to as well. But I hope that answers the question sufficiently.
No, it's a great thing. I think mentors can come from all sorts of directions, whether through academics, through alumni, through these employers that you're dealing with, just through networking as well. And always recommend it as something that's great for development, particularly if someone is in the sector that you want to move into, but even just for those core skills and helping you progress in your career. One other question I'm going to throw at you, again, linked to some of the things we talked about earlier, just around employers and how they can get in touch with you, or how you're growing that employer network again. And I know we touched on that a little bit, but Amy, maybe you could just talk a bit about how you connect with new employers you haven't worked with before.
Yeah. So there's a variety of ways. I think it's kind of a constant thing we have to kind of work on, but we get a lot of information and build relationships with local networks. So Hackney Business Network is one of them. The Heary Strategic Forum. So obviously there's a lot of organisations within locality that are involved in that. Like our manager is on several boards external to the university. So, you know, there's obviously informal opportunities there. And so the open call that we do, we kind of direct the traffic to our website as well, so they can kind of see what they can get involved in. We've got like the normal channel of kind of a shared inbox, or an inbox that they can send an inquiry to as well. I think this year, probably the open call also, we'll leverage Handshake as well to the organisations that are in Handshake to you know, say, do you want to partner with us on anything? And then at the end of the year, we run a collaborative project show, and we will try and invite kind of those networks, and, you know, personal networks as well. I'll have people coming to the collaborative project show that are in my personal business network that might kind of want to then collaborate with us in the future. So I've got alumni from old universities I used to work at come in, who now run businesses. So I think there's no kind of one way, but it's you know, finding those networks where there's reach to get you know,
scale.
And you've got to kind of have that wide reach. Dan, we're going to be going, I can't remember what the network is, the Green Network in the middle of London. You know, that's another opportunity that we will start attending that network, and can nurture some relationships hopefully through there.
So lots and lots of different ways. And you know, something we've talked about, of course, is that wider employer network on Handshake that you're starting to tap into as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a few outreach email campaigns through that as well, which has been quite useful. But no, it's great to hear from organisations once we've done that and have a look at what their business needs might be, and give them the opportunity to learn more about things like micro-internships, the collaborate activities, mentoring, site visits, and just see what suits them from a business point of view, as well as what might help the development of our students. And it's always interesting having those conversations and seeing where that might lead.
Now, while you were talking, Amy, and I put up the slide just so there's some contact information there to dig into through the QR or through the website. So if people are interested, whether on the employer side or on the university side of getting in touch, please do. I'm sure Dan and Amy welcome any further conversations. And if you're interested in Handshake as well, please get in touch with me or use that address at the bottom in terms of how Handshake technology can support these kind of programs and career-related activities. Coming to the end of our time, I've got a question for each of you. Okay, so for you, Dan, what would be your top takeaway to other education providers in terms of successfully running these type of programs?
Well, in terms of how I think other organisations might benefit from running them, or how they might run them successfully.
Oh, yeah, there's a nuance there. Sorry. So yeah, whether how they would benefit from, but you know, if they're running them, what would you say from your experience, this is the thing to get right?
I guess if organisations or higher education establishments are looking to engage in some of the activities that we've described, I think relationships is key. For me, we do quite a bit of work in terms of generating and maintaining relationships, and I guess some of that is from a professional aspect, but also from a a more informal or social aspect at times as well. So I think just exploring relationships and knocking on doors and seeing where that might take people. I think I do believe firmly in the power of networking. It's something that's always supported us and at times has thrown up opportunities that we weren't expecting. So I think relationships and network would be the thing to get right to support to support the things that we're doing. And they're
the same competencies you're looking to get in your students as well, aren't they? So that's a high level of consistency. And Amy, if what's your message to employers around these kind of programs if they want to get involved, or why should they get involved?
Yeah, I think kind of if I'm speaking to an employer that, hasn't engaged with the university or us before, I think it's giving them flexibility and being really transparent with them. So I might get on a call with a, prospective partner or organisation, giving them multiple touch points where they can see mutually beneficial things for them. So, they might not be able to commit a month of their time to a module. So that's maybe not where they want to start. That might be part of the journey, but they might be really willing to come and be on a panel, that's 2 hours of their time. So it's finding the kind of the mutually beneficial touch points for all. And, linking in they don't have to wait for our students for 3 years to emerge from an undergraduate degree to employ them. They're going to be coming out next summer. So we've got quite a nice rolling kind of emerging talent that's coming out. And also linking up those points in learning and teaching, that the students, actually say, look, they're learning about this stuff. And this is the stuff that actually, as a organisation, you're really interested in, to use that technology to advance your business. So why don't you use the students' know-how to help you? So it's kind of finding those points that, they can see the relevance to them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I for one, I think it's so inspirational in terms of the program that you run at Loughborough London, and you weave in so much opportunity for experience and networking and connection into business as part of just 1 year. How you pack it all in and how you support it all, I'm exhausted thinking about some of it, particularly those intense periods early in the year. So, great work. Thank you for giving up your time for an hour here to share your experiences, learning and top tips around the programs and everything you're doing. Those students sure are lucky to have you supporting them. So yeah, Georgia, over to you. Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to also say on behalf of the ISE, thank you so much, Amy, Dan and Charles, for taking us through what was a really interesting set of conversations there. As Charles said, I was sitting there thinking, wow, there is a lot going on for students through this set of opportunities, and a great set of opportunities for employers as well. So well done and thank you again. Thank you, audience, so much. We've got some thanks coming through on the chat as well from the audience, but thank you to the audience for coming today. Thank you for your questions and for sharing your experience as well with us. The recording will be available in the next 24 hours to everyone. Please do have a look back if there's anything you missed, and as Charles said, contact details here, as well as obviously the ability to ask questions and follow up directly after today. Thank you ever so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon. See you all soon. Bye now.